Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to March Muppet Madness. This week we have Carnival of Chaos. That sounds pretty ominous. Good luck.
After taking to the vast void of space with some fabric skin porkers in last week's episode, we're slammed back to Earth and the knifey fear of the carnival. It's not easy being a Muppet, is it? All these problems alongside trying to run a theatre show, all while being violated by strange men and women in flares. Chaos at the Carnival was supposed to be the first instalment in a multi-format series called Jim Henson's Muppet Adventures, but it ended up being the only one, largely down to it being a poor performer from a commercial and critical point of view. Hang your head in shame, Frog. Incidentally, what is this Kermit? Does it inflate when Piggy sits on your lap? The game came out on 4 platforms, the Commodore 64, Apple II and MS-DOS in 1989, with the Nintendo Entertainment System version following in 1990. These were published by High-Tech Expressions, a company who's published a number of licensed video games ranging from Barbie to Tom and Jerry and the Beethoven movie franchise. I'm sure I'll come back to them at some point in the future then. The computer and NES versions are quite different, which is explained by the fact that they were programmed by 2 entirely different companies. Micro Mosaics did the original computer versions, while coding duties for the NES version were handled by Mind's Eye. Micro Mosaics had done a fair few licensed games of their own. Henson's stablemate Sesame Street had an edutainment title from them, and they put out a couple of Star Trek titles too. The strangest license they did, and definitely one I'm going to have to cover at some point, is The Honeymooners, which was a very popular 1950s US sitcom. Micro Mosaics closed their doors after making this Muppet game and a Funhouse adaptation, which isn't the same game as the NES one I covered in the games based on TV show series. The NES version was coded by Mind's Eye Technology, who I can't actually find a lot more about. It looks like they birthed some felt babies onto the NES via this game and then just pieced out. Make up your own history for Mind's Eye Technology here. I'll pretend they make coats for cold wasps these days. The storyline for Jim Henson's Muppet Adventure #1, Chaos at the Carnival. God, that's a long name. Anyway, yes, the storyline is that it's a damsel in distress story. Of course it is, the 1980s. All quests are damsel in distress stories. And in this case, it's that blonde-haired porker, Miss Piggy. The Muppets crew are searching for her in the chaotic carnival of calamitous confusion, where she has been snared by the villainous Dr. Grump. I'm not sure to what end. There's no deep lore presented to Dr. Grump's motivations beyond that he is sinister and not very polite. The only way to get Piggy back is to beat Dr. Grump by braving a variety of funfair attractions, all of which would struggle to attain their safety credentials should a relevant health and safety inspector come and pay them a visit. We've got a Tunnel of Love, Duck Hunt, the Space Ride, the Funhouse, bumper cars, and then a battle with Dr. Grump's pet Grumposaurus. In the computer game version at least. We shall cover that one first, as the NES one is radically different in its execution. The first thing to say about Carnival of Chaos is, oh my word, is it a butt-ugly game for 1989. This was the same year that the Commodore 64 was abundant with machine-pushing games such as Batman the Movie, Shadow the Beast and Stunt Car Racer. The extremely limited colours, was there 4 on the screen at once, and representations of the characters are hideous, with Fozzie looking like a snowman sculpted from a white dog turd, and Scooter looking like a deformed Chris Evans from The Big Breakfast, not the Captain America one. I should explain now that I was unable to get an Apple II version working, so if you wanted to see that version, you'll have to give me a Miss Piggy chop round the face, because I've failed you. The first level, or attraction, we're going to look at is the Funhouse. In all the versions, NES included, you can tackle any of these stages in any order. You lucky people. In the computer versions, you'll then select which character you want to tackle the challenges with. The characters don't play any differently, they are just an aesthetic choice, and what an aesthetic choice it is. And in the Commodore 64 version of the Funhouse level, you don't actually see the character at any point at all. How utterly pointless. The computer versions you see, all of their mini-games play slightly differently. There's a visual theme to it all, but yes, the levels are different. In the MS-DOS version, you explore a vast, partitioned maze in the hope of finding keys, and the Commodore 64 version, well, that gets what on the surface looks like a sliding puzzle game. What a rollicking start for the Commodore. In truth, it's not even a sliding puzzle game, but a rearranged the bits of the picture to complete what is a bit of artwork of Fozzie dissecting Miss Piggy with a saw. It gives you plenty of time, it really isn't difficult. The Commodore 64 version then is off to a bad start. Much more difficult is the DOS one, as the maze is quite large and never changes from its vertical design, all while you're being hunted by husky heads and a goon who's lost his way from the bumper car enclosure. So with that in mind, let's do the bumper car enclosure next. And there's our man again, in the right place and challenging one of our crew to a race around a looped version of the Dodgems course. Miss Piggy will occasionally appear, making light of her capture. I mean, come on, Porky Git, get out the car and let's start pegging it away from this Dr. Grump. Stop titting about. Obstacles are scattered around that will stop you and your opponent from finishing the race. They seem to generate at random, though. The Commodore 64 one has you trying to navigate alone around a single screened twisty course, also full of obstacles, both controlled terribly, and neither the DOS version or the Commodore 64 version is allowed to even consider itself to be mentioned in the same sentence as fun. Next, the duck hunt. The aim of both of these is the same: take down a load of waterfowl with a supply of tomatoes. In the Commodore 64 version, they're flying in formation, possibly for the winter, whereas the PC version has them all riled up and tearing towards you at a great rate of knots. They're not messing around, these ducks, and nor should they. These tomatoes must be loaded with bicarbonate of soda, as in both versions the ducks explode in the most gory manner possible. There's not a lot to these games, so there's not really a lot to criticise about them. It's sort of very reaction based as you take down the ducks with your tomatoes. So let's just move on to the next bit. In Space Ride, your Muppet will be steering around a ringed planet in an unusual shaped craft that just so happens to be the same shape as some of the objects on the planet's outermost ring. Well, this looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward then. What I'll do is I'll just line up my ship with the other shape and, oh, nothing happens. It's all done in sort of inertia style control, so maybe I didn't quite line it up. No, nothing's happening. The DOS version even has the planet moving up and down and like a meteorite coming at you. And I can't get this bloody thing to work. How on earth do you do this? Oh, wait. The idea is that you line up the ship not with the other shape, but go slightly above it and then thrust it downwards into the hole at the top. It took me so long, I pressed so many buttons on the keyboard, and finally I did it, and it was the most easy and simple, unchallenging task. And well, that's it. There's nothing more to say about that one. The final attraction before the big showdown is a river-based effort where your Muppet of choice has to zip between the trash, hippo heads and crocodiles that fill the water of this river. I'm sure using your eyes you can work out what's going on here, and really I don't really need to explain it any more than that. It's another simple game. Get all the keys and you're all set for the final showdown for Kermit against the Grumposaurus. And then you get to bring home the bacon. Sorry, Piggy. The idea is that you need to jump at the beast and tickle him with a feather. The PC version is especially sloppy in its control, whereas the C64 version, that's deathly slow. You have to jump and hit him in exactly the right place to tickle him, and it's the worst part of the game, yes, including the sliding puzzle bit. The whole game, every single event, either feels broken, unfinished, underdeveloped, and, well, I doubt I'll play a worse Muppets game. We shall see, I guess. A year later, and the Muppets rocked up in the entirely redesigned conversion for the NES. And well, it's clearly had a lot more attention paid to it in its presentation than its computer game equivalents. The sprites are colourful and recognisable, and though we've lost the Duck Hunt game, the rest of the rounds are here, all swanked up to the nines. Well, compared to before anyway. And it's not as if NES owners need another Duck Hunt game, do they? This time, there's no selecting of which Muppet you play as. Each character of the 4 that we get here gets their own sequence. Amazing Maze puts Fozzie Bear in a series of 25 different coloured labyrinths made from Muppet-sized Knickerbocker glories. Yes, very bizarre. There are a few malicious beasts patrolling, from skating short people to killer candy canes, a rogue ice cream, and the Grumposaurus towards the end of your venture. Fozzie's role in this is to go and find loads of bows and boxes in these single-screened Bomberman-style mazes, and after a few of these are swagged up, it's on to the next stage. There are a few power-ups scattered. I can't tell what they are, or in fact what most of them do, but Fozzie can pick them up and throw them about, and occasionally he'll hit his opponents and freeze them to the spot. But these power-ups won't matter, as these stages are very simple indeed, due to the AI being as dumb as a bag of Gonzo's chickens. You'll get through them no problem. They are very boring though. Kermit tries his own version of Tubin next, as you row merrily down a river filled with life-draining Umskar. There's some situations in this bit that feel unpassable without taking some damage, but I suspect you won't have much trouble finishing it. It's mercifully shorter than Fozzie's level. It's Animal's turn to steal a bumper car now, as he careens along a road seemingly unaware that that's not how bumper cars work. He has to dodge bombs and other obstructions while battling against some very slippery controls. Another level that feels overlong and tiresome, but as there's so few levels, maybe it's a bit of artificial padding, eh? Gonzo has the most creative level, but it's also by far the hardest. What starts as an asteroid-style shoot-'em-up with very similar controls soon becomes a horizontally scrolling shoot-'em-up akin to R-Type or Gradius, but with those asteroid controls. Do these style controls work in a horizontal shooter with cavern walls? No, not really, but I admire the effort. The walls don't do damage to Gonzo's craft, but you'll be bouncing off them a lot, no doubt into enemies, comets, and the bullets of turrets. Now, these turrets are a particular menace, and they will pin you down and they will shoot your craft until Gonzo has bullets in his nose and he dies. This level is nastily tricky, will hold you up from finishing the game, but it's one of the few that you want to return to, and it's by far the best level in either game. The final level once again has Kermit and, this time his feather, taking on the Grumposaurus, with the aim of tickling the Grumposaurus into submission. Very kinky. But first, and unlike the computer versions, there's a clunky platform section. Once you've felled him, you have to dodge Dr. Grump's bombs and then grab the hearts that Piggy sends out, so you can then go off together and make some frogs porn. I don't apologise for that joke. This level, not so great. The NES game then is by far the better of the two, and well, that's just damning it with faint praise, I'm afraid. It's still not great or even any good. It's average. Put it this way, if Statler and Waldorf started hurling abuse at it, I wouldn't tell them to stop turning up every week if they don't enjoy what's going on. Go and watch the telly, you old farts. I did have a dig around for reviews of either the computer or the NES version from 1989 or 1990 and failed, which means my day is done early and I can go whacker off while looking at pictures of Janice. I mean, go and live a productive and totally non-sexually deviant rest of my day. Next up, well, we've got another week of March Muppet Madness, and that takes us to the Game Boy Color and the rather more simplistically titled Jim Henson's Muppets. Like, subscribe, and K thanks, bye.